Hello, my daughters. So, this is my first recording at trying to record something that I cook on a regular basis that my family loves. My mother taught it to me, and I'm going to try to teach you the way that she taught me, which is red beans and rice. In actuality, we use kidney beans, red kidney beans, this color, not the dark ones. Today I will be doing 2 pounds. So I have this 1 pound bag, and I also have a half of a 2 pound bag left. So what I do first is, and you see these already, I've already gone through here. I actually put a few in my hand, shake it around. I don't know if you can see that. Make sure there's no rocks, because sometimes these bags come with rocks in them. And sometimes they have some, deformed beans, and I don't like that. Like this deformed bean looks kind of funky to me. So I won't be putting that in my pot. Sometimes they have black on it, and I don't put those in my pots either. So a lot of times I'll have slightly a handful to the side, but I actually just toss. But it's relatively quick going through, especially when you keep them in your hand first before you drop them in the bowl. What you're going to do with them. So, since this is my first time recording, I'm not quite sure how I'm supposed to pause it when I want to change and do something different. Again, here's one of those deformed ones, got a little bit of black on it, but not what I was talking about. Sometimes it has like a part that looks like some bug ate into it while it was still soft before they, got dried out and put in a bag. But maybe we'll run across one, but then again, this brand seems to be pretty consistent. I usually don't find those type of beans in here, nor do I find rocks very often in this brand. This particular brand I got at 3 Bears, and they usually carry everything that what is it called? That Costco's and Sam's Club carries without having to pay the membership fee. Anyway, I'm going to separate these real quick, and then I will come back to you with my next step. Okay, be right back. Now, this is the first pound that I've gone through. Get that out of there. And as you can see, here's a dirty one. Looks like it got dropped in the dirt. As you can see, it's quite a bit for this size bowl. So for the second pound, I'll be getting another bowl. Now you can make 1 pound of beans at a time. There's no problem with it. The only difference is how much water you're putting in the pot, how many people you're feeding. Like, for instance, this batch of beans that I'm making will be my second batch of red beans and rice in 36 hours. The first pot I made, it went so doggone fast, and that was just between 3 of us. No, that's 4 of us. Me, you, Daddy, and you 2 girls. And my neighbor wanted some, so I was like, oh, well, I guess I'll have to make another pot. We each had 2 bowls out of the 1 pound, and there's barely any left. So when you plan on sharing, or you plan on, having it cooked, and then, whatever you don't want to eat later, you just put in the freezer and, break it up in portions or however you want. It leaves you enough to have some later at another time if you don't have enough people to eat it all. You guys tend to eat this one up, so I'm making 2 batches. So you see with this one bowl here, the next thing I'm going to do is I'm going to rinse them. I'm going to rinse every bean in here. And then when I'm done rinsing them and, rinsing off any excess dirt, then I'm going to fill this bowl up to about here with hot water. The reason why I'm putting hot water in, as hot as you can get it, not boiled on the stove, but pretty hot, as hot as your tap water will go, is because what it does is it helps to soften these beans. Kidney beans are extremely hard. And so what happens is, if you don't soak them overnight, when you go to cook them, it doesn't always cook the center. Let me get one of these half beans and show you. There's a little hard thing in the center of a bean. And it's usually right in here. Worst thing you could ever do is cook your beans too fast, not soak the beans, and be ready to serve this big red beans to your family, and you bite into a fork full of rice and beans, and you got these little crunchy things in your mouth. Ruins your whole pot. I can't tell you enough. My mother didn't soak her beans. That's the difference between the way I'm showing you how to do it and the way my mother showed me how to do it. What my mother would do is she would wash the beans and she'd put them in the pot, put her ham hocks in the pot, and her salt pork in the pot. And she'd cover it all with water and then cook it on a low fire for hours. You don't have to do that. I know that one of my worst experiences is standing in the kitchen all day long on a regular basis and cooking for one meal. That's not including lunch and breakfast. One meal. So it's not something that I care to do on a regular basis. I think I grew out of it. I used to like to cook. I used to love to cook. But coming up with too much leftovers and, kids take a lot of time. So, you don't always have the luxury of standing in your kitchen all the time and watching everything. So this just made it a little simpler for me. So I found out about soaking these beans from Mikey's grandfather, Mr. Reed. And he taught me that if you soak them in extremely hot water and you put about 2 tablespoons of Arm & Hammer baking soda in the water. Remember, we're going to fill it up to about here with extremely hot water after washing the beans, of course. Then you're going to take Arm & Hammer baking soda and shake it all in the water. Then you're going to stir it up and you're just going to let them sit. Let them sit for 10 to 12 hours. By that time, the water will turn pink. All these hard beans will be swollen and pre-softened. Okay? They won't be cooked, but they'll be pre-softened. And at that time, you'll pour them in a colander and rinse them very, very thoroughly. The purpose of the Arm & Hammer baking soda is to release the gas from red beans. You will find in the future that a lot of people don't want to eat red beans and rice. They like the flavor. They absolutely love it. It's a good filler. It's a good meal that will fill your children up, and it's good and healthy. Straight up protein. Okay? And your starch is the rice. Now, you don't have to have white rice. I grew up with it with white rice. I was going to make brown rice to go with it. But, you know, things have to get past my eyes. And I'm used to seeing white rice in my bowl with the kidney beans on it. So, what I'm going to do now is, oh yes, I was telling you, the purpose of the Arm & Hammer baking soda is most people don't want to eat beans because they get really bad gas. And when I say really bad gas, the kind that gets your guts in a knot and you be, bending over in pain sometimes. Or you're on an elevator and you try to hold that monster in because you don't want to be the one to exterminate everybody in the elevator. That kind of gas. So what the Arm & Hammer baking soda does is it makes, while these are soaking, it releases all the excess gas in these beans. That's why when they're done soaking, the water will be like a kind of funky brownish red color, pinkish brownish red color. And then you'll see bubbles. Sometimes, if it's in the summertime that you're making this meal, and it's hot in the house and it's hot outside, oh Lord Jesus. It's like you wake up, you walk in the living room, and you're wondering what the hell just died in your house. Because the gas that's released from these beans is horrendous. So, just imagine if that gas went into you. Anywho, so that's the purpose of the Arm & Hammer baking soda. So I'm going to put you on pause again. I'm going to wash these beans and rinse them very well. Then I'm going to put the water in, and if I can figure out a way for you to watch how I do wash the beans, then we'll be recording there in a second. All right, hold tight. Okay, so I can't just set this like I wanted to when we were sitting at the counter. So what I've done is I put my bowl with the dry beans in the sink. So now I'm going to turn on the hot water. And you see the water is pretty clear. So you won't have to do too much cleaning of these beans. So, gotta turn the water off. See, water's pretty clear. I'm just gonna turn this off. And it's okay that some of them go out the bowl. You don't have to chase them. Just don't let them go down the drain. So, I'm sitting him back up here on the counter. I turn the hot water back on after I get my beans out the sink. That's not good. It could stop up your pipes and you end up having to call a damn plumber, and that is always expensive. That will never change. Okay, so I'm going to run the hot water, and I'll be back. Now, I'm not sure if you can see the steam coming, but that's pretty hot. So all I'm going to do is put this bowl back in here. And I'm going to run that water till it gets to about here. And again, this is only 1 pound of beans in this bowl. I do plan on making a 2-pound pot of beans. So, turn off the water. Okay. What I was saying, if you didn't hear me, was this is only 1 pound of beans. And I do plan on having 2 bowls. 1 bowl each with 1 pound of beans. Because I'm making a 2-pound pot of beans. Okay, so as you can see, my water went higher than I had anticipated. So I'm going to pour a little bit off. And the reason why you don't want too much water in is because when those beans swell up, that water might drain off. Pour just a little bit more out. Okay, that's about right. All right, so I'll be right back. Okay, so now you see my beans in my bowl. Arm & Hammer baking soda, it's your friend. You want to shake that in. That's about the equivalent of 2 tablespoons. If you happen to pour too much in, it's okay. Remember, tomorrow, after 10 to 12 hours of soaking, you're going to pour this in a colander and you're going to thoroughly rinse the beans. So any excess Arm & Hammer baking soda that's on there will come off. Okay? So let me get a spoon so I can stir this up because that water's too hot for me to put my hand in there. You just do a quick stir. And sometimes these beans float and sometimes not. That doesn't mean anything in particular. They'll all settle down after a while. And you can tell my water's really hot because you can see how some of the skin of the beans are getting wrinkly, just like you do when you're in the tub of water. Okay? I don't know. Maybe I might take these floaties out. They kind of look funky to me. So, I don't like nothing funky in my pot. No, that was just the trash can lid. Wish it was attached to the trash can so that way when I flip it open, it just closes on its own. But you girls go through so much garbage. I can't have just one of those little tall kitchen and bathroom trash cans in the kitchen. So, yeah, see how funky those things look? Yeah, I don't like that. Can you imagine biting into it, into your bowl, and then all of a sudden, it's got a funny flavor because I left the funky looking beans floating in my pot? Yeah, that wouldn't be cool. Set those there. I'm tired of walking across the room. Okay, I got all the ones that were originally floating. Got a couple that want to pop back up. But again, these remaining ones, which are new floaties, they'll sink back down. Alright, so I realized that before, or when I started, I did not tell you the seasonings that I use. Okay, so I'm going to go grab them. I'm pretty standard. I don't like to do anything fancy. So, and I'm going to set this bowl aside here to the side because it's going to set all night, so we don't need to see that anymore. So, I use the dried, chopped, or minced onion. Okay? I do not use fresh onion like my mother did because when you're cooking and you're boiling something, the onion, even chopped up, it'll get mushy. It don't look good in your bowl. It just looks nasty. And it sticks to the side of the pot. Can't stand that. Okay? So what I do is I put in chopped dried onions. A little bit of pepper. And, oops, granulated garlic. You probably see this salt sitting here. I don't put the salt in my pot of red beans. And the reason why is because I use meat to season my pot of beans. And that is salted pork as well as ham hocks. Now, my personal preference is ham shanks, but I'm getting ready to go get them and show you what those are. Okay, so move these seasonings out the way. And I'll tell you about the butter in a second. Butter is your friend. Okay, so this is what a smoked ham hocks look like in the package. My preference is I don't like the ham hocks because it's got this thick skin. It's got a lot of fat under it. Between the fat and this bone is the lean meat. Now, although when you cook it, oh yes, when you open this up, wash it thoroughly before putting it in your pot, okay? And this is just grease buildup. It's not mold or anything like that. It just does that when it's cold in the refrigerator. Anyway, so when you, I just like to have the ham shanks. Ham shanks are the same as smoked ham hocks. The only difference is it doesn't have the fat and the thick skin on the outside. It's just the lean meat, and it's been smoked also. But because they're kind of out right now at the grocery stores, this is what I had to get. So again, pork hocks or smoked pork ham hocks is what they're called. Okay. I also put one package, just one of these, of salt pork in the pot. So I put these in first. I open this up. This particular package comes pre-sliced. But when I do it, when I open this package up, I not only rinse this off in the sink, but then I dry it with a paper towel a little bit. You know, just pat it dry. Then I take a knife, and let me show you as an example. Yeah. And I cut it like this, which comes out to about a ½ inch each. Okay, that's it. Cut it all the way down. Since this pack is already pre-sliced going this way, that means, you know, it's going to be like, it's going to look a little bit like bacon. Now, normally it's solid. Okay, now the way I buy salt pork is I look for it to look as close to bacon as possible. I like the lean meat in there. I don't like too much of this white meat. This is a good package, even though this is a lot of white meat. This is a good package of salt pork because it's pretty, you know, equal with the marbling of the meat and the fat. The fat seasons the beans as well as the lean meat. Okay, I actually absolutely love this stuff, but because there's salt in it, because it was cured with salt, and that's a whole different video. It doesn't require for you to put salt in your pot because of this. Okay, so again, I only use one package. This package, I only have this one here because you see it doesn't say sliced over here. Well, my husband bought this package. Your dad bought this package. And he doesn't know the difference of how to pick salt pork. He just grabs what he sees and puts it in the basket. This one has what I was telling you about. Too much white. That's just straight up fat. You don't see any lean meat through it whatsoever, except when you get over here. So to me, that's a big waste. This sucker's not going to go in any of my pots. Okay? Now, the butter I put in last. That means that after the pot has completely cooked down, I put the butter in after I turn the fire off and let it melt. Go back, stir it up in 5 to 10 minutes, and then the pot's ready to be served. But before I go there, I want to tell you something about an alternative to the ham hocks. Some people want to be, health conscious. I understand. You can get smoked ham hocks. You can actually get turkey bacon and use that instead of salt pork. Okay? What I do as an alternative to smoked ham hocks is I use smoked turkey drumettes. Not the full turkey leg, but the turkey drummet. So, wait right there. I'll be right back. I know this package says turkey drumsticks, but it's not a drumstick because a regular turkey leg is usually just one, is this long, and it's about this big by itself. That's too much for a pot, okay? The turkey drummet is the part that looks like a turkey leg, except it's the wing part of the turkey. You can get these smoked, okay? Smoked turkey drums, okay? And it does the same flavoring as the ham hocks. Now, you don't use them both. You do one or the other. When I can't find ham hocks at all, or the ham shanks, that's when I'll use the smoked turkey drumettes. And typically, these come out in the stores close to Thanksgiving and Christmas and New Year's. You don't see them all throughout the year. Whereas ham hocks you'll see throughout the year. Okay, so I'm going to put you on pause now. All right. Okay, so I'm about to end this part 1 of the tutorial on how I do my red beans and rice using red kidney beans. But I did want to say this. The whole point and purpose of making these videos for you girls and for my future grandchildren and for my current granddaughter, Trinity, is so that way you guys know how to do Mama's cooking. And since you guys were, or let me rephrase, because we were blessed to have you girls at a later time in our lives, you happen to get older parents, not parents in your 20s. So I just wanted to make sure this was taught to you guys before, anything happens. I love you guys. And there was something else I wanted to tell you too. Let me think. Pot of beans. I'm going to come back tomorrow and show you part 2 and the steps on what we're doing. I showed you the seasonings. Let's see. I have a funny feeling there's something I'm forgetting. Doggone it. See, that's what happens with 50. 50 jacks you up. Oh, yeah. I remember now. So, remember how I showed you about the salt pork and the ham hocks or the turkey drumettes? That is my base every time I make any type of beans, whether it be red beans, pinto beans, white beans, lima beans. I do it all the same. I do not soak the other beans because they're softer beans. They'll cook up pretty fast. I only soak the kidney beans. I also, when I make greens or cabbage, instead of adding the beans to the pot and then adding the water and cooking it all at one time, I cook just the meat down, which is the salt pork and the ham hocks or turkey drumettes. And that means that I put them in a pot, I cover them with water, and I put them at a high boil, and I don't add any seasoning to it. and I literally just boil it until the water turns white. Usually it's at a milky consistency, like, let's see, 1% milk, the way that looks. That's what it'll look like in the pot. And there's usually going to be about 2.5 inches of the liquid left in the pot. And of course, the ham hocks, the big meat, is going to be, partly uncovered because the water's boiled down. When it gets like that, you put the fire down to 4, and then you just add in like your chopped cabbage or your chopped mustard greens, okay? Or you can actually, chopped mustard greens. You could do Brussels sprouts in there like that. You can actually do the same thing with green beans. Sorry, not snap beans, but green beans. So what you do is, you add it in after the meat has cooked down and after the water is milky. And every couple of minutes, and when I say couple of minutes, I mean 2 to 3 minutes, you put, once you add, whichever vegetable you're putting in there, put the lid on, walk away. 2 to 3 minutes later, come back, stir it up, add some more. Just keep doing that until you get your pot to the size you want it. Keep the fire at 4.5, maybe 5.5 at the most, depending on the stove, because if you have electric stove, of course, you have more even heat. Well, or is that gas? I forget. It's different at everybody's house, and everybody's stove is different. But you want to have it on a medium heat. And you want to constantly stir it because you do not want anything to burn or stick to the bottom of the pot. Okay? Then, after those vegetables, and again, we're talking about cabbage and greens, Brussels sprouts and green beans, okay? Now, like in the green beans case, you might want to add chopped potatoes. So what you would do is, instead of waiting until everything's cooked down, you would add the chopped potatoes in the pot with the meat while it's cooking down, and that way it'll pre-cook the potatoes, and they'll be nice and tender when you start adding in the green beans. Because once you start adding in those green vegetables, meaning the green beans and the cabbage and the spinach and Brussels sprouts and mustard greens, because mustard greens is very tender, so it cooks fast. What will happen at that point is the meal will be done, except for you adding in your seasonings. And again, remember, my seasonings are what? Chopped dried onions, or minced, pepper, and granulated garlic. Mix it up, turn the fire off, take the pot off the fire, wait a couple minutes, and it will, voila, be done. Oh, another thing. When you notice that I didn't tell you to add any more water to the pot when the water cooks down, that's because soft, thin greens like cabbage, Brussels sprouts, mustard greens, they make their own water. So you do not have to add more water. They will create their own water. You'll see that pot's going to be full of water and you're going to wonder where it came from.